If a big engine like me is frightened of thunder, the little sheep must be very scared.
Skarloey is the oldest working locomotive on the island of Sodor. He was originally introduced in the 10th book of the Railway series titled Four Little Engines, written by Reverend Wilbert Audrey, and Season 4 of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends by Britt Hallcroft. Once a bouncy and patient brat, now a respected, wise old scholar of the Skarloey Railway. But later in an era, it was the other way around. He turned from an old man into a timid child. Today, I want to focus on a particular instance of Skarloey being uncharacteristically scared, and how it handles him overcoming his fear. This is Skarloey Storms Through. Skarloey Storms Through is the last episode where Skarloey is afraid, and it is a solid one. In this episode, farmers have to get their sheep down from the hill to protect them from a storm. Skarloey, Renius, and Peter Sam have the job to deliver the sheep down, but Skarloey is too frightened of the thunder, so he backs off and hides himself in a shed. So Peter, Sam, and Renius do all the work with great fun, until they both run out of coal, so they can't make the journey anymore. That left Skarloey to do all the work by himself. He has to get all the sheep down from the hill, and by the end he realizes he is a brave engine, and the storm doesn't scare him anymore. This episode is flawed with the portrayal of Skarloey, but what I like about it is it actually feels like Skarloey overcame a difficult challenge, and it also mirrors a great Skarloey story where he is who he's supposed to be. Though I don't defend Skarloey's portrayal in the hit model era, I do think his apprehensive trait is better than his other one. Unlike the other Skarloey episodes in this era, it actually feels like Skarloey grew as a character. When Skarloey departs, he's still wary about the storm, but the sheep are the priority. As he is going up and down the hill, he gets more of the sheep, and by the end, he realizes he is braver than he thought he was. Neither the lightning nor the thunder can break his stride. You see, Skarloey didn't initially want to go up the hill as he was still nervous about going into the lion's den of the storm, but all he's concerned about are the sheep, and he knows Renius, Peter Sam, and the farmers are counting on him. There was a voice inside him saying, "The lightning will strike you! The lightning will strike you!" And he doesn't feel safe, but he doesn't give in to that feeling. His true mettle starts to shine after many years, so it really feels like a victory when he says,
I'm braver than I thought.
"What a champ!" Skarloey's brave action in the storm reminisces another wise engine that once said,
Being brave isn't the same as not feeling scared. Being brave is about what you do, even when you do feel scared.
and after this, Skarloey is never afraid of Cat again. Beautiful. This episode put all the other bad Skarloey episodes to shame, such as in the Season 7 episode, The Old Bridge. This episode was the first genuine out-of-character moment of Skarloey. In it, Skarloey is too traumatized to cross a wooden bridge after he nearly falls off, even when it's fixed. But when he hears Renius is stuck on it, he silences Bruno and crosses the bridge to save him. There is also the Season 10 episode, Wharf and Peace, where it's about Skarloey overcoming his diffidence when he's at the wharf, a really relatable moment for me. And throughout the episode, he shows the other engines how he crosses difficult track with the mindset that he's not a brave engine. He saves Renius from falling logs, which damages his tank and coal bunker. Renius says Skarloey was brave with advising all the other engines on how they could get to the other side, but Skarloey is still in denial. It all comes to a rushed ending where Skarloey realizes he is brave, and he subsequently introduces himself to everyone around him. Yeah, I don't think I can introduce myself to a place like this. Both The Old Bridge and Skarloey Storms Through are similar in structure, but what makes Skarloey Storms Through less offensive is it is the last time he's fearful and not the first story in decline. The conflict is also a bit stronger too. Old Bridge is sort of like Heights and the fear of the bridge breaking again. Storms Through is almost a guaranteed danger and more lives are in risk, but there is a chance you can pull through. Wharf and Peace was liquid. The first two acts were solid, but the ending was just too rushed and thin. And though I do relate to Skarloey in this story and in The Old Bridge, and Skarloey Storms Through kind of has a rushed conflict at the start, but at least it got to the point. So even for an era where consistency was not a priority, where the characters were sometimes just wrong, it's almost imaginable how one instance feels like an arc, doesn't it? Naturally, this character growth would be a big moment for Skarloey, and we should all know another story that defines him. Let's compare and contrast this story to an older one that was mentioned earlier, Old Faithful. Old Faithful, or Four Little Engines in the show, is about some coaches that are angry with Sir Handel, so they knock him off the track because he was rude to them in another story. Sir Handel is out of action, and Skarloey is the only engine able to take his train. But since he hasn't been out in years, its parts and joints were worn out, and on his return journey he breaks a spring. The crew could have phoned a bus for the passengers, but Skarloey refused. He pressed on despite his aches just to get his passengers home. He comes home from the works a hero. So both of these stories have different challenges. Old Faithful breaks Skarloey springs, and Storms Through is a lightning storm. But the structure is almost identical. In both of these stories at the beginning, Skarloey is left behind in a shed. For the original, he was too worn out to work, and for the season 11 episode, he was too scared to come out. And in both, Skarloey wants to work, but he just can't yet. While he is in the shed, the other engines do most of the work. In Old Faithful, Sir Handel has a breakdown or something, so he is out of action. And Skarloey storms through, Peter, Sam, and Rennie run out of coal, so they can't do anymore. So now Skarloey has to step in for them. Skarloey's conflict in Storms Through is already trying to push against him. In Old Faithful, everything was going well, that it was a surprise to him that he broke. All odds are against him, but he still takes his train home despite the struggle. Both of these stories even have sheep in them. It's much more likely a coincidence, but either way, it is surprising how reminiscent of the old hero story this episode is to it. And with it being the last Frady Cat Skarloey episode, it brings home the energy. Now looking at Skarloey being panicky and comparing it to his precipitous portrayal in other random stories from this era. More than half his episodes from the hit model era, Skarloey was portrayed as being a reckless imbecile, going up the incline, running around, tug-of-war, etc. I think it feels like he's more out of character when he is impetuous, than equally bad to his apprehensive motivation. See, Skarloey being apprehensive was a gradual change, from sagacity to chicken. He did his old man business in season 4, the obvious old man stuff is not there in season 5, but he's still right. There was that 5-second moment in season 6 where he gave up, one whole episode in season 7 where he almost died so he's scared, and another where he was a bit impatient. Had another worried episode in the hit model era, but with more instances in said episode, and ended on a satisfying note in season 11 for reasons stated already. But Skarloey being careless just popped in Renius and the dinosaur, and popped in the final instance, Push Me Pull You, with no sign of any character growth at the end of each story. He's like this. He's the same amount of careless in all of them. It's even weirder how opposite these two images are. That's why if I had to choose between Daredevil and Chicken for Skarloey, it's going to be Chicken.
Whee! Puffed Skarloey as he raced down the hill. But when he got to the bottom, he couldn't stop. Skarloey raced all the way to...
Skarloey storms through. While it is quite offensive, and if it was in the classic series like The Old Bridge, then it would really suck. But it's not a story that I can really hate. It really felt like Skarloey grew halfway as a character in this era, and he went through a situation which reflects his universally loved hero story from long ago. Even though he was out of character in this episode, it's more satisfied because it feels more smooth than his other, more thoughtless trait. Even still, Skarloey will always be remembered as the oldest and wisest engine on Sodor and the Skarloey Railway, and his first hero story will be the story that defines him. He will never be remembered as neither a daredevil or a coward. I hope you all enjoyed this video.